Hi everybody, welcome to Shivers. Today we're doing a late movie review for the new movie Good Boy. This came out last Friday, October 3rd. This is a very well talked about movie. I honestly didn't really have any intentions of seeing it, but we have to do a movie review. It's a new movie. So this movie does focus on the perspective of a dog, and it's very unique in that we are seeing the entire movie almost from that perspective. If you don't want any spoilers on the story itself, just fast forward to the ending for the actual review. Otherwise, here's sort of the story breakdown. So this movie is pretty short. It's only like an hour and 15 minutes. It is a Shudder movie, so it does feel a little bit, I don't want to say homemade, but it feels like a Shudder movie. And again, it's very unique in that the majority of the movie is from the perspective of the dog. So the dog's name is Indy, and the dog's owner is Todd. So we start the movie off by Indy really caring for Todd and looking after Todd. Todd is sitting on this apartment bed and he's basically like having a seizure, and Indy doesn't know what to do. But it is that perspective of like dogs can pick up on when you're sick or something is going on. So Todd's sister keeps calling him, he's unresponsive. She finally comes to the apartment, and the entire time Indy is crying and whining and wanting to make sure that Todd is okay. We do get this underlying story in the background that Todd has some sort of cancer or sickness, and we can only make assumptions because we're seeing everything from the perspective of Indy, but we're getting all of these vibes that he probably has like lung cancer, he keeps coughing up blood, stuff like that. So all the while now, Indy is kind of taking care of Todd. His sister keeps calling him and she's like, is Indy acting weird? You have to check on your dog. They know when you're sick, they know when you're not doing well, so make sure that you're putting that at the forefront of what you're paying attention to. And Todd basically is just sort of like, shut up, it's fine, like don't worry about it. So we have this underlying story as well of grief and what is actually going to happen when we're faced with real death, and there's nothing that you can really do about it. We see Todd go to the doctor later on as his coughing up blood gets worse and worse, and the doctor's like, yeah, it's way too late for you to be part of a clinical trial, so best wishes and hope you feel better. So there's all of this acceptance, there's all of this grief, there's all of this sadness, there's all of this anger. And so Todd decides to take Indy to his grandfather's house. And his grandfather's house is in the middle of nowhere. We don't exactly know what happened to the grandfather other than, again, we're getting only blips of the story. So we know in the background that the grandfather, either committed suicide or something pretty tragic happened in that house. And nobody has been able to live in that grandfather's house for more than like a week or a month, they say. So there's a lot of convoluted storytelling in the background of, is there some element of mysticism? Is this just the case of a haunted house? Or is it very simply just somebody who's sick and kind of on their last leg? So this is also a little bit representative of like a hospice feeling. You now leave your apartment and everything that you've known, and you have to go to the quiet woods in the middle of nowhere for your last couple of days. So again, the entire movie is shot from Indy's perspective. So talk about a phenomenal actor this dog is. But there's all of these places inside the house that still have all of the stuff of the grandfather, and everything is kind of like wrong. So Indy keeps going to this certain corner of the room and looking up and seeing this like ghostly apparition, going down to the basement stairs and the basement door where we see all these claw marks on the other side of the door. We start to understand the story of the grandfather was 100% reflective of what's going on with Todd, in that the grandfather had a dog and they never found the dog, and Indy is being sort of haunted by the ghost of this dog, and we're trying to figure out what the mystery is, but we're also trying to make sure that everything's okay, all with no communication from dog to human. So it's a very interesting perspective from this movie again, and as it gets further and further in, there are a couple of jump scares. It is the idea that this is probably a haunted house, and you have the underlying tones of Todd getting sicker and sicker and a little bit more manic. He even starts to light sage and put wind chimes around the house, so it's kind of that last ditch effort of, how can I make things better? How can I be better? So It's kind of funny, especially from a holistic perspective, seeing that. But Indy the entire time is the one who like knows the truth and can kind of see what's going on in this house. In the basement, he finally gets his way down there, Indy does, and there's the skeleton of the old dog, but then there's also this like black tar apparition of the grandfather, or at least like whatever's haunting the house. So that too is again very representative of cancer and the black tar and things that are kind of sulking into your lungs. So it is all a lot deeper than just a horror movie that is kind of from the perspective of a dog, but there's not a lot of substance to it because of that same reason, and because it is pretty short. It's pretty cool. At the very end of the movie, they do like a post-credit scene, and it's talking about Todd and Indy and how they actually filmed this movie, and it was filmed over the course of a year, and Todd is the real guy and Indy is his actual dog. So he's like, you know, what you think might be a really cool opportunity to have a dog actor, like he's not acting. We're just telling him where to go in this house and what to do, and he's trained very well and he listens very well. So yeah, that dog definitely deserves an Oscar, because it's very convincing and it's very relatable of anybody who has ever had a dog. And you know, they sit at the bottom of the stairs and they look up and you're like, what the hell are you looking at? That type of thing. So it's very relatable, it's very real, and it's also very heartwarming to know that the connection between the dog and the owner are played out on screen as real as possible. So this is a little bit of a shorter review because it is a little bit of a shorter movie. Again, not a whole lot of substance to be discussed. But for the actual rating, so for the story itself, I would give it a 3 out of 5. Again, I wish that there was more that was talked about. I love the idea that they captured all of that background stuff still successfully from the perspective of the dog and not a lot of communication. The ending twist is absolutely amazing. I'm not even going to spoil it here, but the ending twist of this movie is like, whoa, I didn't see that coming whatsoever. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, for the story itself, I would give it a 3 out of 5. For originality, though, absolutely 5 out of 5. We've never really seen a movie from the perspective of a pet, let alone a horror movie in this same genre. So it's really cool. It's very unique for that reason, and I mean, incredibly well done. That leads into our next comment of acting. So acting gets a 5 out of 5 because we're so focused on the dog. We're really thinking about like everything from that perspective and what is going on with the dog and what's going on with Todd and the caring nature of the sister. So you have these really relatable and understandable relationships and dynamics. For production, I would give it a 3 out of 5. I would give this movie overall like a 10 out of 10 if it was a horror short. I think seeing it played out on the big screen is pretty cool and, you know, gives a lot of hope for like filmmakers, but that's about it. Like, this is to me something that would have stuck so much better if it was just a short film. So, you know, a dog in a haunted house and somebody dying of cancer, basically. For scares, I would give it a 3 out of 5. There are some pretty decent jump scares. There are some freaky apparitions that Indy sees. So this is decently scary, but I would not necessarily call this like a super scary movie. Like, this is something that most people could probably watch. So all in all, this gets a 3.8 out of 5, which is pretty good. You know, I think in a couple of years from now, I'm probably going to forget about this movie, and then it'll just turn into like, oh, that was the movie about the dog. But I do want to give credit where credit deserves. You know, this has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's very unique. It's very well acted, very well done. It just feels a little bit too small for it to be like a major motion picture, in my opinion. So if you have seen it, let me know what your thoughts are. And thank you for listening to this review. Next week, I believe, is the Black Phone 2. So I'm super excited for Black Phone 2. Very high expectations. We are also going to do another new movie review for Shelby Oaks. So yeah, a lot of new movies coming, which is really great. You know, 2025 has really proven itself in the horror film realm. So let's keep it going. But thank you as always for watching. Thanks for your support. Let me know what you thought of this new unique movie, Good Boy, and I will see you all next week.